Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm so excited. We got Joe Longa from the Longa Life podcast today. If you haven't heard of the Longa Life podcast, that's okay. It's fantastic. Check it out. Joe is super interested in alternative forms of therapy and mental health, wellness, addiction, human behavioral habits, and neuroscience. And he's also one of the original members of the Social Memory Complex with the Quantum Health Collective in our group meditations. And so I wanted to get his feedback on that and talk about some of his guests. Some of his interviews have been great, and just was excited to just shoot the breeze. So welcome to the Reality Revolution, Joe. How's it going?
Wow, man. It's going great. This is wild. First time actually ever being interviewed. So,
oh, yeah?
Yeah, man. And that's phenomenal in itself. It's very, dream come true. Like, man, I
It's the
mean,
weirdest thing. I had this overwhelming, like, I got to interview him. So my higher self told me, something told me, okay, yeah, let's do it. I didn't
yeah,
like,
man.
it's also when we did our first, I think I spoke to the QHC a while. You look super familiar. Like,
That's wild, man. That's
I
the
was
way
looking, I
you
was like,
say
oh my gosh, you look like, did I go to college with you or something? And so,
Whoa, man,
you know
you're
what I'm
tripping me
saying?
out right now. You're tripping me out because honest to God, no joke. I have a neighbor that actually looks like you,
Oh yeah.
which makes it even, dude, it's
Well,
so
there's a lot of bald
weird.
dudes out there. Yeah.
No, I'm one of them. You know, it's under the hat.
Right.
You know, but I'll
Right.
tell you, he's actually not. It's just like there's something about him that actually reminds me of you. And it was funny when you first came on the QHC. I was like, whoa, he kind of reminds me of my neighbor Steve a little bit. And it
Yeah.
was the same thing. It's like there was a familiarity there already, like immediately seeing you.
Right.
So that's wild that you
No,
said that, man.
that's definitely something going on there. So tell me a little bit more about what motivated you to start your podcast,
Mhm.
and reach out and teach, and also acquire information and interview some great people. Tell me that your journey to that point.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I'll start like way back. Like,
Yeah,
I can
I
go
want to
way
hear
back.
it. Go for
All
it.
right, cool, man. So when I was young, like real young, I was pretty like out there. I was into cool, crazy stuff. I was into
Right.
the kind of the metaphysical already. I liked the idea of witchcraft. Like I liked my mother and my grandmother used to take me to Salem all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
just the idea of stepping outside of the norm was kind of cool for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I began to do that like myself. I would try on different kinds of, I would wear different kinds of clothes, stuff that wasn't really normal. And what ended up started happening is I started getting made fun of quite terribly. You
Right.
know, I got picked on pretty bad. And I learned to deal with it throughout my life, but it kind of stole my authenticity. I realized now in my later years through the work that I've done, and we'll talk about that later, I'm sure, but I realized that it like stole my authenticity. It took away my want and need to be myself, like just by being whoever I really wanted to be and not
Mm-hmm.
allowing any outside influences to really just deter that. And so that literally started me down a path of kind of not being myself, I guess. And
Right.
as I did that through the years, you know, I went through high school and all that stuff, and I had, you know, normal life. I wrestled in high school, and you know, I was always part of every crowd. I never had like a niche crowd. I loved everybody, and but then as I got towards the end of high school, and after I got out of high school, I noticed I was starting to experience like this intense anxieties, like
Mm-hmm.
really intense anxieties to the
Right.
point where I actually couldn't go places. I would I remember going to get dog food one time for my dog, and I was sitting in the parking lot of like one of Petco or PetSmart or something like that. And I literally was like, what is going on? Like, I just need to go inside and get dog food. And I couldn't correlate what was actually happening. So I didn't think much about this. And at the time I was with my fiance now.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to take our niece. We had been together since we've been in high school, so it's a long relationship. So that's a whole nother conversation. But we were going to take our niece to Florida to surprise her for her 10th birthday party. And I was going to surprise. She was my girlfriend at the time, but I was going to surprise her and propose to her
Right.
in Disney World. Man, I go to Disney World, and the anxiety, like, that was when it like hit overdrive. I literally spent the most of the entire time in bathroom stalls with like my hands on my head, sweating
Hmm.
and shaking, couldn't breathe, like really confused as to why I was like so traumatically bent out of shape. So I ended up through the whole week. I ended up making it through. I ended up being able to propose to her, which was good and a
Yeah.
disaster at the same time because I was shaking and sweating and making a fool of myself. But I think people kind of just thought it was all part of the proposal
Right.
thing. Little did they know. And the last day, we're in the store, and it's like a metaphysical shop. There's a lot of Buddhism stuff. There's all different types of books on
Right.
meditation and all these things. And I'm having an attack at that moment.
Right.
And thank God for my fiance Desiree. She walked up to the girl at the desk and she said, "Hey, listen, my fiance is about to like have a stroke over there right now. He's literally, I was stuck at the bookcase and I just couldn't move, and I was soaked in sweat and I was
Hmm.
shaking and trembling." And the woman came over, put her hand on my back, and I wish I knew her name to this day. I wish I knew who she was because I would thank her, because she put her hand on my back and she said, "Listen, I know exactly what you're going through. I spent my entire lifetime going through it and I've healed it." She said, "Read this book right here." It was Jerry and Esther Hicks, Getting into the Vortex. And it was like my first introduction to like something different that I
Right.
could, oh man. And I couldn't even read, right? Because I had dyslexia. It was something I
Mhm.
didn't even realize I had, but it's
Right.
what I had. I couldn't follow a line on a page to save my life. So reading was so complicated. But I ended up reading this book like on the flight home, like a lot of it on the flight home. I was just like consumed by it. It wasn't even me reading the book. It was just
Hmm.
like I was just reading and reading, and it came with a meditation CD. So I got home, and I did my first couple meditations, and man, it was tough.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
things started coming up that I didn't even remember. That I kind of not vividly remembered, but like faintly had in the back of my mind that there was something up. And that something up was that before even getting made fun of when I was a little kid, I was actually sexually molested by an older neighbor that lived in my neighborhood when I was younger. I lived with my grandmother and my mom, my dad for a short period of time in a small town outside of where I actually ended up growing up.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I knew like I had like always had this weird sense about something being weird, and I think that's what came through with me always wanting to do something different throughout school.
But you had
And
forgotten
like,
about it.
but it literally was like not on my radar at all. Like
Hmm.
no details, no real understanding of what was actually that thing that was making me feel strange. And then one night, actually, and there's a whole story that gets to this point in my meditations. I had been meditating up to a long taken me a long time to get to this point in meditation. But
Hmm.
my girl and I had a little bit of a tiff, and we had spent a little bit of time apart. And I was here by myself in my apartment meditating one night, and
Hmm.
it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I felt like I was there in the moment. Like I could see it, feel it. Everything about it was like tangible.
Right.
But I had like this really, it was the strangest part about it was is that I had this feeling that somebody was standing in front of me in my apartment, but I knew that nobody was there because it was just me. Now I knew that Desiree wasn't here, and it was just me.
Right.
My dog was there, but he was old, so I knew it wasn't him sitting up in front of me. He couldn't even barely get up.
Right.
And I felt this presence in front of me, man. And I kept my eyes closed and I just kind of let it be. And I felt it like dude, it felt like it wanted to like come on top, like get on top of me.
Right.
Like, and just like, and I just let it be. And I like forgave it. And I just sat there and I let it like dissipate, and it just dissipated. And from that moment on, like there was this whole shift, and it still took a while to like alleviate the anxiety.
Right.
But once that stuff started happening to me, once I like had this shift in like, oh my God, I have control. I think that moment really gave me this like
Right.
control, the subconscious control over something that I had dug up, and was able to reframe and realize that, wow, I got to deal with this in a different way.
Yeah.
So I began to do forgiveness practices, and it led to so many things. Reading tons of different books at that point. I mean, there's a long list of books. I mean, I went to one Tony Robbins seminar, which was unbelievable,
Hmm.
and just really started diving in, became real advocate of meditating. And then I started eating differently. Everything
Right.
changed. Everything changed. I was like, wow, man, I'm eating like a lot of crap food, and like I think this might be attributing to maybe some of my symptoms of anxiety. So I changed to an organic diet. I still eat animal products, but I eat them on a very, very low amount, and I eat them. They're highly sustained practices in the way that they're raised, and they're usually grass-fed, grass-finished, the whole deal. And I try to just really, I don't know, this whole thing like made me realize how connected we all are as a human race, how vibratory our entire being was. I started reading books by Joe Dispenza.
Mm-hmm.
And before you know it, man, I realized I was doing a lot of this stuff like on my own. And I kind of got to a place where I was like feeling really good and things were going good, but I was still working in a job that like was my job. And I was around people that if I talked to them about this stuff to them, they looked at me like I was like, all right, man, you got it. I mean, some of them are really cool about it and they were interested, but they never really grasped it. And then I don't even really know how it happened. It's like, this is like one of those universal things that just kind of like happened. Kyle, who was a mutual friend of ours, he reached out to me and started texting me about doing these little challenges, like Wayne Dyer challenges, like reading these things and these passages in some of his books, or doing these meditation things. And for some reason, I like resisted it for a while, and I didn't really dive in. I was like afraid, and I think that comes back from when I was a kid getting made fun of. I was so petrified of like diving into a group and then all of a sudden them being like, whoa, there's the freak. He came in and that's what I felt like, dude. Seriously. Common. I was waiting for that feeling. And you know what? Not only did it never come, it blossomed into this thing where I ended up starting to communicate with him via text message. I ended up going to one meeting that he ended up creating with Kristen, another friend of ours. And we had it in her small little place, and there was a few of us there. And that was the first one. And that meeting literally set off what has happened in the past few months, really. And it's kind of intense. You know, we had a few meetings there, then COVID hit, and then it turned into this giant thing that we're doing now on Zoom, and people are coming from everywhere. And then at one point in the beginning of it, I had always wanted to start a podcast, because going through all this stuff, like I said, you start learning through all these different modalities. And I was learning from podcasts. There was so many that I would listen to. I would listen to, like, I have some of my favorites, like the Align podcast. This was in the beginning. Tom Bailey's the Impact Theory. I love his stuff. I was listening to Aubrey Marcus, Kyle Kingsbury, like love Aubrey Marcus, man. Yeah, like all these dudes and these people, and I'm like, whoa, these guys are speaking the language that I need to speak. And I was like, man, you know what? Maybe if I can start talking about this stuff and make it cool, some of the dudes that I grew up with that I know are struggling, because I still communicate with them, but they're just not getting the thing. Maybe if I start bringing some people on that they can see eye to eye with, and maybe I can create this podcast. But it never kind of came to fruition. And then Kyle came into the picture, and Kristen came into the picture, and then the Quantum Healing Collective came into the picture. And then like Kyle's like, hey man, you should interview me for a podcast. And it was like, boom.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I don't even know if I'm ready to do this yet. I live in a tiny little apartment with my family. I don't really have that much gear, but screw it. Let's do it. So we did it, man. And it turned on to this thing it's really become quite wild, you know?
I relate to everything that you said. That's very similar to my journey with my own podcast. You do have this, once you are aware of this knowledge and you've seen it change your life, you have this yearning to help other people become aware of it. You see people walking around, if they could just meditate or had some knowledge. And there's also that part of you that wants to learn. And it's fun as hell to talk to these people and have a forum and be able to talk about it. You know, these people want to talk to you.
Yes.
They
and
want
when you
to talk
get
about it.
Like talking to you, man, I've learned so much different things, like transurfing and quantum jumping. Like none of these things those weren't on my radar until Kyle introduced me to you before we had even met through our actual meeting at the Quantum Healing Collective. And then I'm like, whoa, now we're on a whole nother level of stuff. And I think, you know, maybe for people listening, there's a level, like I talk about this about when it comes to like even things like plant medicine and all that stuff. If you listen to how I talked about my story, don't think that jumping from, I think that there is a time and place that you should work your way up to some of these things. I think you
Yeah.
really should. You should really take time to see inside yourself, be on the train of taking, I mean, I started journaling and all these different
Hmm.
things. And when you start doing these different things, it preps you for some of the wild experiences that can come about when you're doing quantum jumping, or you're doing,
It does.
or plant medicine, or any of these things that come up. You kind of like, oh, okay, I've worked through that in my journal before, and I've worked through that in the
Right.
meditation, and you can reframe it. Then it's like when you can do the deepest of work on it. But if you
Yeah.
go from like doing none of this stuff to like blasting into some of these things, some people it works great for, but there are other people that it doesn't. So just
Yeah.
hesitate, you know.
What I hear with your story, it's like your higher self knew you were in that shop, kind of knew you were going to be there, and it prepared you like for that moment right there. This woman needs to introduce you to this material, and created the anxiety in you on purpose, right?
Yes.
And clearly you're having a ongoing communication with your higher self. And so, yeah, a lot of my meditations are advanced, and people will say, oh, nothing happened to me. And that's because they have never even tried to communicate with their higher self, or that eternal aspect, that deep part of themselves. Like you said, the people that find those meditations, those more advanced meditations effective, have done the work, have gotten into a relationship with their higher self, have worked through the anxieties and issues. They can work, but I agree that there's always, at the end of it, you still need that that process, and it's not instantaneous. Some people want it to be instantaneous, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's there, and it's amazing the little things that you think were terrible in the past all lined up just to take you on the journey. Because how else would your higher self got you to that point without creating that anxiety during that weekend, right?
Dude, you bring up like one of my favorite subjects that I think that I'm most happy about teaching people is really this is like straight out of Ram Dass, man. Life is your curriculum. Like it
is.
Everything's here to teach you. And if you reframe even your past, because right now this is Eckhart Tolle's stuff, and I'm name dropping like a son of a gun, and I don't mean to be, but it's just these are all my mentors,
right.
you know, like if you reframe in the now something that happened in the past, you change it. So if in Ram Dass is like, listen, everything is your curriculum. So learn about what you've gone through in your life. And even if it means that you sat in a meditation and something like myself comes up from the past, you have a moment there to get deep learning. And if you take that and you can reframe it in the now, you can change your life.
Yeah.
You know, man. And that's like,
it's interesting because all of these they have different ways of doing it. Like Neville Goddard talks about revision and neurolinguistic programming. They talk about rescripting, but it's all kind of the same thing. You're going back, and people are stuck in their memories. I think a lot of people die stuck in their past. And so they end up having to redo everything because it's just that the past just becomes this cloud that weighs them down, and they're not even in the moment anymore. It's just a molasses that sucks them down.
And it's funny that you say like in a cloud. All I can picture is like being inside a cloud of like TV screens showing you all of your past events, right? Yeah. And you're like I don't even know what like the outside world looks like anymore because I'm just that's your lens.
Right.
And if you look through that lens, man, your whole future becomes everything you've already done in your past.
Really interesting in the Carlos Castaneda in the Toltecs have this concept that if you don't go through that stuff, and he calls it recapitulate, where you're not even revising it, you're observing it and then kind of just letting it go, that there's like these five-dimensional beings that are just waiting for us to die, and they eat us up and then we just have to return, and they're just, so if we go through this process of releasing our past, we're free. We're free, there's nothing they can take.
Right.
It's hard to think of it like that because our past defines us,
I think people get afraid too, honestly. I think that there's this sense of responsibility to identify with your past, so that way you can so it's like this weird thing again when it comes to like people agreeing to how you want to behave in your life. And then like if you've had this like identity that you've portrayed your whole life, and then all of a sudden you start making these changes and people start looking at you and they don't see the changes as good, and you're so identified with that past feeling,
Right.
that you stick to it, man, and you don't let it you release. So like that releasing, like you said, that freedom, when you finally let go, you realize that all that past stuff is what the reason people want to remember that stuff about all your past is because it helps them stay focused on the past that they're living. And if you've ever met somebody who doesn't have that kind of attachment, you can feel it. And that's what kind of has happened when it was like Kyle and Kristen and I all got in the same room at the same time. And it was like,
Right.
Okay. I said, there's nothing, like we all know each other had rough pasts and like they're beat up, and we've gone through the mud and we fixed each other's ourselves. So there is no judgment here. And even if you still have things to fix, like I'm here and I see it. I know what it took to go. I know what it takes to go through, because you yourself, I'm sure, know that part of you that likes to battle your higher self.
Yeah.
And it's like your little wounded kid. It's just like, no matter how much it knows what's good for it. It gets all fussy and it wants to still do the thing,
Right.
Man, and then you train it. And that's what all this stuff is about. I think that's what the meditation's about. Dude, healthy eating helps. I'm trying to promote healthy eating so much because I feel like it's really something. I mean, I know this is weird, but it is really something that we're missing out on. Like, food is something that is our genetic makeup. It helps. It's like you are what you eat is almost so. It's so real.
Have you noticed especially since the pandemic, that there has been this kind of organic, natural, and organic differently, grassroots movement where I see people like myself, we building up the garden. And it's like, I don't get as hungry anymore. And then certain foods, which I used to love, they're just not as good anymore. I used to crave that fried burger with, but now
man.
There's been a sort of consciousness shift towards food that I have noticed. I can't explain it. I can't put my finger up, but I have noticed watching on Facebook a trend.
You know what I think it is, man? I think people are finally starting to think like, man, wow, what happens if food runs out? And holy crap, wait a minute. Because I think a lot of people are starting to come out on Facebook and Instagram and all these platforms, and they're really speaking up about what's going on with our food system.
Right.
Like it's kind of an accident. And I always say that because I don't like to place people at this conspiratorial level of like, oh crap, like you were meaning to do this. I think things happen by accident. They get on a roll and they start working. And it's just like, think about years ago, man, they used to tell people to smoke cigarettes to relax.
Right.
Think about that now.
Right.
You would not tell somebody to smoke a cigarette to relax. In fact, there's ads everywhere telling people not to smoke. So we learn as we go through this like crazy life that like, okay, some of the things and the choices that we have to forgive that. Like, and I think we're going through one of those right now. I think we're starting to see that, okay, yeah, we changed our food system to make things easier and what we thought was working for our diet system. And now it's not working. People are getting really sick. Right. How come all of these things that are related to our dietary system, these sick illnesses keep rising? Something's up with the food system. Right. And then when you meet people who have changed their diet and not done much other than that and had like some sort of autoimmune disease or skin issue, which is usually an autoimmune disease, and all of a sudden they change their diet, and then like you see them in a couple months and they're like, it all starting to go away, it's starting to disappear.
Now Vadim Zealand, who I talk about on the with Transfer, he is on a straight raw diet. Of course, I'm like, if somebody's badass, I want to do what they do. So that's hard.
Hell yeah, it is.
All the time, straight raw all the time. I've had it somewhere, gone a couple days where just eating out of my garden or just, eat some fruit. But there may be something to it though, because I just have a feeling like I just get that warm, loving feeling when I'm just eating the raw food.
Yeah, that grounded, you're like grounded, right?
Another bizarre, crazy aspect of this that came to mind when you said that, because we were talking about it in our meditation, was this conscious Akashic record. We're moving towards this point where there's a sort of group mind forming. One of
Mhm.
those things is we have a subconscious awareness of how food has affected everybody, not just ourselves, but we don't
Mm.
know it. So there's this change in our eating because it's not just our experience with food, we're experiencing everybody's experience. And it's like a natural knowledge about, yeah, I
Mm.
don't want to eat that. That's going to make me sick later. Because does that make sense? Could that
Yeah,
be
man. I think
one
another thing that starts
explanation?
happening too is that like when you slow down, I think that this whole thing allowed people to slow down. And like I know this, like I always talk, I correlate stuff like this to my father because my father experiences, he has two shoulder replacements, and he still experiences a lot of pain. And
Hmm.
he's always like, when I'm going and I'm going and I'm going, I'm good. It's when I
Right.
go home and I sit down, everything creeps in. And I think what happened for a lot of people in this pandemic is that a lot of people got to sit home
Right.
and eat the same things that they were eating in their fast-paced life at work and on these jobs, and they're moving and moving and moving, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, I ate that cheeseburger from Wendy's and I feel like absolute crap right now. I don't feel
Hmm.
good, and I've never felt like I felt it. But you're on the move, and people were out just like, walking or in their garden, and there was a slow pace kind of calm relaxivity that kind of like came about to everybody because I think everything shut down. There was nothing much else you could think about doing other than being with your
Right.
family and staying home. And I think that started shifting people's mindsets towards, whoa, I don't feel good when I eat this. And then, like I said, you give a lot of people at home time, and technology shifted. Now a lot of people are sitting on their phones, and there's a lot of people out there speaking about food.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at the statistics, and I don't like talking about statistics usually because they're usually not correct, but there's a lot of metabolic issues. People with metabolic issues fell victim to some of this stuff, some of this,
Yeah.
some of this virus. And if you look at what metabolic issues usually stem from, are habits, eating habits.
Exactly.
So it just shows you how much control we have, man. We have control over this human system.
Right.
Namely, like we also, like with all the meditation and work that you do, you then can not only control your food system, the way your body processes food. That way, you can control your neurobiological system too. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean?
One of the
And
craziest things when I started really amplifying my meditation, becoming really badass at it, is that
mhm.
I could eat shitty and I would still not gain weight. And there was some other kind of energy going on. I still didn't want to, but there was something going on where I wasn't having the same ultimate metabolic results that would occur.
Isn't that strange?
Something from the energy that I was bringing in. I
Mm.
There's no way to explain it. Uh,
Well, I think
what
there
is
might be actually, we Kyle talks about this stuff tremendously. It's like the think feel loop, man. When you think in fearful thoughts, which is what I was doing when I was feeling these anxieties and all these things. And as I started rising up through the levels of different frequencies by bringing myself up through my traumas and releasing them, and then understanding people more and getting higher and higher up through my frequencies and feeling more whole, just being me, there was a weight that was lifted off, and I became more energy than matter. And isn't it interesting to think about, like, when
Yeah,
people have all that weight, where they hold it
is down below,
is
right?
down below. So like when you're having those times when you feel like, wow, yeah, I can eat a little bit of crap, but it doesn't do the same thing that it does, it's because there's no more blockages here anymore. You've released that block of, like, if people don't want to believe in chakras, that's okay. You don't have to. But what they can know is that there is glandular systems. And if you talk to some people, they correlate our chakra systems
They
to our
do, they do.
glandular. So, see what I'm saying?
Right.
So think about it in that respect, man. When you have swelling in those areas, it's blocking it work from working.
Right.
Just like if you have a clog in your drain, somewhere
Uh-huh.
in your drain, if there's a clog, it's blocking it from working that right. If that stuff's clogged up and with junk, and don't blame yourself, this stuff happens by itself. But now
All
you
the
have
time.
the responsibility, once you have the awareness,
Yes.
digging it out. You
So,
know,
what's your experience with intermittent fasting?
Ooh.
I've that has amplified my meditations. Do you
Mm,
find that being in a fasting state is more powerful to meditate in, or do
mm.
you what? How have you? I know you've played around with it, of course. So,
Yeah,
what's your
man.
opinion?
Dude, okay, this stuff's cool. And I just had Zen Life Dan on, Vadney. That's how you say it. I
Mhm.
told him, I promise I won't botch your last name, man, because it's spelled funny, but I think it's Vadney. I'm 100% sure. But check add Zen Life Dan out. We were talking a lot about fasting, and I myself I tried bodybuilding for a while,
Right.
and I did fasting the wrong way in the
Right.
beginning. And let me tell you, when you do fasting the wrong way, it sucks.
It
It
does.
hurts. It hurts. You kind of feel fluish almost. You get cold, you have headaches, and it just doesn't feel good. But if you fast the correct way and you use water the right way, and even Zen Life Dan has an autophagy mix, which helps you out with your body going through a process called autophagy, which is just basically eating bad bacteria, bad things that are stuck in that system that I just told you about.
Right.
So as you go through these things, yeah, you know what I've noticed is that when I did anytime I intermittent fast, which is pretty much every day now, I've started to notice it kind of started out as like a game of like, yeah, I'm going to try to do this. And now it's just, I felt so much better.
Yeah.
That the clarity is really what it comes to. And I think that this comes down to some science. I think you can look at the science of this. So when you eat food, blood goes to your gut to start doing its work. And if you fill your body with food constantly all day long, it's working in that gut area all day long, and it can't put a lot of blood up here.
Right.
It can put some, but it's got to balance it.
Right.
So when you have these moments of being able to just drink a lot of water and you've had good nutrition, the key is on this is good nutrition. Dan really helped me out understand that doing a cleanse before or like a deep fast is amazingly more beneficial. And there's a bunch of stuff that he talked about that was unbelievable. But yeah, man, if you can get yourself like real cleaned out, you start feeling this clarity that comes over through your entire system. It comes through your brain, it comes through your breathing. That's another thing. You breathe differently. But you got to do it properly. I think water is important. Make sure you drink water. Yes. I love it, man. I do usually what I'll do is I'll go to bed. I'll usually try to eat, like I just ate dinner before we started.
Right.
About 45 minutes before we started, I had a little meal, big meal actually. So I won't eat for the rest of the night now. I may have some water and maybe I'll have like a couple of blueberries or something like that before I go to bed, but I won't eat. And then I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have like maybe a black coffee or even a bulletproof coffee.
Which is what I have every day. Yeah.
I love my bulletproof coffee.
I have it every day, man.
Yeah. It's the greatest thing, man.
I don't use a blender. I just use a spoon with the ghee and the oil and just spin it up with some honey maybe sometimes. You can make a lot of people make it so complicated to make it. It's not. I
think everybody, and that not to get sidetracked, but I think that brings up an important subject really, as I think, because myself, I'm a perfectionist. I really am. And when I learn how somebody does something, I'm like, whoa, do it that way, right there, just like that. And I don't want to screw it up. But it's something that this is recently starting to come to me, and I've had this download, is that diversity and there's a freedom in just allowing yourself to be different and not allow it to be perfect and let it be imperfect, man. And like when it comes to diets, I've learned so many things because I've done so much stuff. Everybody comes up with like a specific diet plan and you follow the diet plan. I don't believe that's how it even works. I think that
you can't live like that. You can't.
No. I think that our bodies are literally designed to work synergistically with the area that we live in. The environment that's going on, and during the summertime, you can eat differently than you can in the wintertime. Yeah. You should eat differently. I mean, I just watched, I don't know if you're into Ben Greenfield. He just had a whole thing that he talked about how rancid oils, how terrible they are when you're in the sun. So if you're eating things like French fries and that stuff on the beach, it's like one of the worst things you can do for your entire your biological system. You're literally aging yourself. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to get sidetracked on it, but
no, that's all good.
But food's just, I get passionate about it, man, because it did change my life a lot, eating better.
But if you intermittent fast enough, you don't, people listening, you don't get hungry. No. You actually, I'll go through the whole time. I could go longer. Yes. Once your body gets used to it, your body is thriving with energy, and you have to remind yourself to eat. It's not like I'm super hungry,
Yeah. And then when you eat too, you usually generally pick better things to eat. That's something else I noticed.
I wanted to ask, because you're a founding member now of the social memory complex. It's a big part of what I'm trying to work on, this idea. We can do group meditations, and we start accessing something bigger. So we did our first one where we really activated. I know it sounded crazy, but I wanted to get some follow-up from you. Did you notice any differences once we did that meditation? Was there a connection? Was there anything different? When we did that, it felt like we did something.
Oh man.
It felt like something big happened. And I wanted to not just be saying it myself, because then it's just coming out. I wanted to get your feedback on that.
So, okay. It's so hard to even articulate it, man. It's like one of those moments, like it's like you had to really experience it. But I'll tell you this. I got on the phone with Kyle pretty soon after and was just like, hey man, something was wild about that. Because I mean, even the time went by differently.
No,
I didn't. Do you notice the time went by differently?
I have another meditation I did for that, and it took me about an hour. But I was going through and I was like, what? Everything's 30 minutes. And then I started crying at one point.
Oh, dude, that's so beautiful. Dude, you could feel that stuff.
I could feel like I was connected to all 8 billion souls. And I had an opportunity right there to free them. Like I didn't even plan that. It's just like, there's something happened. I think it's going to continue to grow.
Yeah.
Have you had any memories or things come up since then as if you had accessed some other field of information?
So I got some good stories. Good story. So my uncle and I actually had this moment where him and I sat down together, which my uncle and I, quick story, my uncle and I, when he was young when I was born, so he grew up like my older brother. I didn't have any older brothers or siblings. I was the oldest. I have a younger brother, but he was like my older brother. So we used to spend a lot of time together. And then there was like this separation as I started becoming something, doing more things outside of what the tribal consciousness in the family was. Not that my family is bad. They're great. And they're unbelievable. But I just was doing different things. And, you don't get in the same wavelengths anymore. But the other day we had an opportunity to sit down and watch some motocross together, which we used to do when I was young.
Right.
And I was talking about these things, about the family's tribal consciousness and, some of the things that I think that it has had, how it may have possibly had an effect on different people's upbringings in the family. Right. And that was it. That was a conversation. That's all we had. And I woke up the next day to a very long text message with the accolades and the achievements of each person in the family that I had discussed. And this thing came over me where I was like, whoa, this is a huge moment that like I have an opportunity to dig into this tribal consciousness of my family and help without allowing my ego to attack my uncle's ego. And I don't think that would have happened had I not had this moment of like, there's a peace that happens when you do those big meditations.
There's a oneness that comes in that's not normal when you do it by yourself a little bit. Right. I felt there was something that happened in that. I felt like I was in a different state of consciousness outside of my body, but at the same time within my body.
And it stayed.
It stayed. It didn't go away. It's still there. I'm still feeling it. I'm having recollections and memories. I've noticed seeing people on the news and like, I know all about them. I know their whole life history. I've had some moments since then where I've talked about authors on my podcast, and it's like the author's right there. I know everything about them.
And you can just like, it's like, and when you say that too, like
knowledge going on.
Yes. It's a feeling
too. Somebody else to confirm that I'm not going insane with it. Yeah. It's a feeling,
man.
It's a feeling, because it would be too much. We would go insane if we had all this downloaded actual verbal information. That's
what it is. Like, I want to articulate it for people so they understand that this is not like a visual. I mean, it can be, and maybe it is for you, because Kyle gets a lot of visual stuff. Kyle gets a ton of visual stuff, and it blows my mind at times. And I'm like, whoa, man, I wish I could tap into that. And I think that there are different people who can tap into that. I think you're one of those people that have a really innate ability to tap into a place in your consciousness that really tunes you to like a full-blown universal vibration.
Yeah.
And I don't like to say that about myself, but I think I'm not giving myself the credit, because there have been times when I've had moments where I can I'll just talking to somebody and be like, whoa, man, I feel like we talked about right in the beginning. Like, I just feel like I know you, or even meeting people in person, I get this wave of like, okay, I can feel you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is not normal. We have not this in our recent history. This is not like something that would commonly happen, but I'm getting that all the time. Right.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear that somebody else is also experiencing something similar,
Have you seen the shamanic resonance right now, man? It's like,
yeah, we popped the Schumann resonance for the peace meditation. I'm going to replay our meditation we did. I think on the one on Saturday, it popped.
See,
So
that's what
we
I'm
moved it.
saying. People got to understand. I think that this is what I really, my mission, and I think that
Right, right.
Kyle and I have had a lot of talk about this. I really want to help people understand that, like, listen, we're not trying to be woo-woo-ish here.
This is not woo woo.
No, we're really, really trying to help people understand that, like, I want people to step themselves back into a moment and really think for a moment. Like, there are pyramids built, and this is getting to get a little bit heady,
Go
but
for it,
there are
please.
pyramids built in the middle of a desert, and they were built thousands and thousands of years ago. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the capability to build
We
those
don't.
pyramids like that in the way, in the structural design that they built it. Like, we cannot emulate that today. Okay,
It's truly
it's
amazing.
impossible. So what does that say? Are we missing something that we're tapping that we're not tapping? And then what I try to explain to people, like, when they don't think about it that way, I'm like, well, listen, you're having the experience of magic happen every day. Wi-Fi exists. Whether or
Right.
not it's a good thing or a bad thing, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what I'm telling you is that there are waves floating through the air, transmitting information to your phone in like nanoseconds at times.
Right.
Does that register with the possibility that our brains function with electromagnetic signals,
Mm-hmm.
just like our heart does? So doesn't your phone. Like, when you start
Yeah.
piecing these things together, like the possibilities of the things like you're talking about, when we all get together and we're charging this like collective heart.
Yes. It's happening. And so
Dude.
it's just it's unfortunate because science and the general public has almost immediately dismissed some of this stuff, or they paint it as woo woo.
Mm,
But it's not. It's
mm,
not. The brain and the electrical system clearly is receiving quantum transmissions. That's been proven. It's a
mm,
receiving instrument. It is
mm,
not enclosed, and our memories are not in our brain. Our brain is just like this thing that accesses an address out in
mm.
the universe, like a web address. That's where the memory is in the collective consciousness. We
In
can't
the
get our
cloud.
right. So why not? Why if and so can you imagine the planet as it accesses the cloud more and more? Things are going to change. The world is going to change because
Yeah, man.
we are not going to be in our own little world where we only
Mm,
think about ourselves. It will be very difficult for people to do, and
mm,
I see a lot of people. They're going to have to change their beliefs that they've
mm,
created beliefs from their family or their culture
mm.
or their country, and it's going to be hard for them. They're going
Hell
to have
yeah.
to they're going to have to acknowledge things about themselves that are just terribly wrong,
Mm.
and this shadow is coming up. You can see it.
Yes. And that, dude, like, you're talking about a whole other thing, man. Like, this whole collective shadow that's arising right now.
Yeah.
What I think, I always try to, like, codify these things into like a real small picture or a big picture that
Right.
is real digestible. Like, I wanted people to think about it this way. Like, dude, if a alien species,
Mm-hmm.
something that didn't survive on the things that is made up of Mother Earth like we do,
Mm-hmm.
it survived on a whole different mechanism, came here and decided that it was going to take out. Now, this is really out there, but just imagine. That's it. Just all you have
Right.
to do is imagine. If you watch a movie, you can imagine. So
Right.
just imagine. So this thing comes here and it tries to take over us. That will be the moment that we see this place as Earth and us as Earthlings and everything here as Earthlings.
Right.
That vibration is coming through I think the collapse of what the ego has tried to keep alive
Right.
as a form of safety. But I think the realization of connection, the web of connection that's grown through the internet, through the ability for information to just pass the way it's gone through
Mm-hmm.
so fast. There's like no time to catch the information and stop it like there was in ancient times. Like,
Right.
once, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just did an interview with this woman, Laurie McCracken. She practices authentic tantra. She was a nun, okay, and
Wow.
didn't have sex or sexual contact until the age of 58 years old. Now, I say she's a nun for one crazy reason, because in seminary, when she was a nun, or I think that's the right word, I hope I'm not saying that wrong. When she was a nun, she always felt disconnected. She couldn't get that full connection. She left, began practicing these tantra by going to these things, these retreats that she felt pulled to go to, and learned so many things about herself. And then through an experience, discovered God, the God she was looking for.
Wow.
Their whole time. And she said it right in my podcast. She goes, you know, I had to leave religion to find God. And I'm not knocking religions. I think that they help structure people. But what I'm trying to help people understand is like, there is a universal thing. That's what you and I are talking about.
Yes, there
is a universal thing. That's what religion's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We're just trying to take the dogma out of it and help you understand, like, think of it just as a vibration. Take the human out of it. Take what our humans like to do. We like to structure things based upon, we build everything based on how we work. You know what I mean?
The religion wants to codify it. The religion wants to make a hierarchy where there's the master priest and then there's a group under it. The religion wants to install rules and restrictions. And
for safety. It's a protection mechanism. It's all for safety.
I'm not saying they're evil. You don't even know they're doing it.
That's bingo.
They don't even know they're doing it, right?
And that's what I think is collectively being shown right now. That's what I think this pandemic was about. I think it's finally bringing a mirror in front of us as a human race and telling us, like, it's like the alien that came here. This little virus is like that little alien that came here. And I was hoping that and this is going to sound really just like terrible. Like, I'm not a terrible guy. I feel terrible but I lost my 104-year-old grandmother to the disease. Okay.
Oh, wow.
She's been through everything and she was not an unhealthy woman. She was pretty good up until the point of this. So I'm not
pretty good, you know?
Yeah, man. So I'm not like discrediting this thing and saying it's terrible. I'm not trying to say that people aren't going through hard times, but what I'm saying is that if this is one of those reframing moments, like everything is freaking neutral and we can use it as, like, back to Ram Dass. We can use it as our curriculum. This is a moment. This is the universe shining a mirror at everybody and saying, learn. Right now, please learn. Because if you don't learn, I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to sustain this. I really don't.
Now, I see a lot of spiritual bypassing in the spiritual community, and I understand where they're coming from. And I'm always teaching, look on the bright side, don't focus on the negative, don't watch too much of the media. But I might post something about some injustice that's happening, and they're like, "Why are you posting that? That's so negative. I don't want to talk about it. Everything's fine." I think we've learned from the past. I imagine a world where that stuff is overcome and we've solved those problems. I have not lost hope. People say, "Oh, it's been going on. It'll never end." That's not true.
That's not true.
Way that we can resolve these things is for it to come up. If we push it down, and it'll fester, and in the dark, it'll just keep getting worse. So we're going to go through a little uncomfortable period. I have this feeling that we're going to have some event like the George Floyd, where somebody is dying of hunger. And everybody's going to see themselves in that. And they're going to go, okay, we need to do something about the hunger. We're going to see somebody that is struggling with poverty and something unique in the incident. And then everybody's going to be like, we're going to start seeing these problems. If you remember in the past, we've had thousands of these events, right? And people will always go, well, that's just happening there. But what would happen is some terrible event would happen, and the family would be, I can't believe this is up in arms, and they would start a movement, and they would be the ones on talking on the TV, right? So what you see on TV is everybody's acting like they're the family, like they have been personally affected like these events. So I think this is just the beginning. And it's going to be, for a lot of people, annoying and uncomfortable that are not aware of what's going on. Seeing everything in that old paradigm, they're like, oh, they're just always complaining, and everybody's just so dramatic all the time.
And I'm hoping that over talk about it gets redundant for people. That's what I almost kind of try to do that sometimes. Like, I'll listen to people talk about these things over and over again, and I'm like, wow, isn't it funny that we've been talking just like this for so long? Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And I hate to keep saying it, but I'm all hot and bothered by Ram Dass. I dig the way that dude thought.
I sent Kyle a video I had done on Ram Dass. It's interesting that you said that.
Oh, see?
I've done a video on Ram Dass, and he had mentioned something to me. And Ram Dass had a teaching I'd sent him. I love that guy.
Because he's just, dude, like the way he talks about himself, he was like, look, he sees the human in himself. When he had a moment where he was having a problem with a boom mic in one of his talks, and he
Right.
was really angry. He was frustrated about it. And then he had this moment where it like clicked to him, and he's like, look at me, this holy man does all this work,
Right.
getting angry about a boom mic.
Right.
And it's just like, I think that's what's happened, is like the distraction is starting to dissipate. The like the sports and all the stuff that's been on TV that just keeps our brains occupied is starting to dissipate. And people are being forced to think about what it is why they behave. Why do I even behave like this? What am I doing? Why am I even like this? What is it to be human? And what does it mean?
We're
And it's like,
de-zombifying.
bingo. And dude, I
Yeah.
was brought up, listen, I'm 34 years old. So I
Right.
was brought up in the age when they changed all of our food to high processed sugars,
Right.
they took all the fat out of food. Everything that was video games, television.
Right.
Dude, I can remember
Distraction.
distraction. Dude, I can remember while my mom was cooking in the kitchen, sitting with my little tray, eating a bowl of Rice Krispies with whole milk and a whole bunch of sugar. Dude, I could
Right.
scoop the sugar
I
out of the bottom.
remember.
And don't get me wrong, it was delicious. But
Right.
that was a trend that started changing our biology and zombifying us.
Yeah.
It changed the way our pineal glands worked. It changed the way our entire, our whole chakra system and structure worked. Our diets changed in a way that fluctuated. Like we've had this whole conversation, that it changed the way our blood worked.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it changes everything. It takes you off your grounding. The more you spend time inside. Oh man.
It's a great point. And I'm a victim of that. I was the zombie. I'm a movie lover.
Yes.
I went to film school. I've watched a million movies and read a million books and played a million video games because I wanted the distraction. I understand the people that are still like that. But yeah, I've had that same realization. Like, I don't have this need to distract myself now. I could literally just sit here and do nothing all day and I'd be super happy. There's a part of me that I'm fine with that. I could just sit here and just stare at the wall and I'd be all good. And that I've never had that before. Right?
Dude, that's so important. I think that's important. I think that's and that comes with work, because as soon as you turn off the distraction is when the flood of this is like Ken Pataki is another guy that I had on, and he talked about the monkey mind, and what it's like is a bunch of raging monkeys in a bus loaded with chains and metal, flying down a road, a hill uncontrollably. That's all bumpy
with no
and ragged,
driver.
with no driver.
Right.
And you just like desperately trying to stop that thing. And if you do that, if you're just sitting behind it, like with your heels dug in, like, I'm going to stop this thing, it'll never happen. But if you can like jump off to the side and go like Ram Dass and go, goes those monkeys again, flying by, trying to piss me off.
The thing about Ram Dass, when I would listen to him, he would take a grape and then he'd just like eat the grape for like 30 seconds to a minute. It's like, you'd just be watching at first, like, dude, what is he gonna? Is he gonna talk?
Yeah, like, eat the grape.
Is he gonna say something? He'd be like super like into that now, and so.
And it's beautiful. And honestly, that's like when you look at animals, man. I relate this stuff to our like the way we are synergistically designed to be with Mother Earth. And I think about animals and the planet and all that stuff and the way that they behave, and like a tree and the way it behaves.
Right.
We've just disconnected because we like to complicate things. We've been given a gift as humans. Like, we can think and build complicated shit outside of what the norm is, outside of what exists on planet Earth. We can take things from planet Earth and alchemize them. We are the alchemists, and alchemize them and change them into these materials and make things. But we've kind of been doing it like a kid in a chemist with like a chemistry set and all these like really dangerous chemicals, and like, here's a room, go have a blast, don't kill yourself. And like, I think what's starting to happen is like the people, like the consciousness in the outside of the box is like, whoa, I think we let them play a little too long. And now the things that are starting to show up are these pandemics, these terrible things that are happening in society, where people are being pinned against one another, and we're looking at one another as opposites instead of humans and earthlings. And these things are showing up to be like, okay, like I'm giving you one more opportunity to like play with your chemistry set good. Like, wake up. You've played it. Look at the plays. Look at the mess you've made. Look around. Look at the room. Sit down in a circle together. Take some deep breaths. Connect. And
Right.
then like, let's see how we can take all this mess and like, let's reframe it and fix it, because this is the place that we live and we got to fix it. So let's just fix it.
Right.
We can do it. Like we were able to, it's just like it's just like, if you like, you take it from the micro and you extend it out to the macro, you can do the same thing. It's just how we do with ourselves. You look
Right.
around at the mess you've made inside, because as humans, all we do is we sit here and we collectively make decisions about life as we go along. Our subconscious makes decisions, not collectively. Our subconscious makes decisions as we go along. We build this like personal reality out of it.
Right.
And then someday
Exactly.
you wake up, one day, for some people, you wake up and you look at yourself in your mirror and you're like, who the hell is this person? And how the hell did I get here?
Right.
And then that's when you go through the same process that like the world's going through right now, where you go, okay, I got it. I'm in the body. I'm here. I got to take everything that happened and I got to reframe it and I got to utilize it as fuel and tools to make a better me.
Exactly.
That's what we have to do right now.
Absolutely. So as somebody that's meditated, do you have any suggestions or recommendations for somebody that may be watching that hasn't meditated? I always
Mhm.
like to, and then tell me a little more about your like monthly morning rituals
Okay.
that you've adopted.
Okay. Awesome. I love that. All right. So meditating, if for somebody who's never meditated, and I mean like has never sat down, as soon as you sit down and you close your eyes, everybody thinks that they want their brain to stop talking. Newsflash, it's not going to happen. In
Right.
fact, if it's your first time, it's probably going to be the loudest it's ever talked to you.
Right.
Like the loudest. So understand that that's okay. That's what this is all about. Meditation is not, we've been trained in a society
Hmm.
to have quick fixes. And there are quick fix meditations that work, like heart coherence, which is the one I think I would recommend the most. But just to understand that these aren't pills like have been handed out to the society nowadays, where you wait a few minutes and magically things go away. But the upside to this one is that when they magically start to go away, they magically start to stay away. Whereas
Right.
when you take the other things, they magically go away, but then they come back. So this stuff for meditation, for me, I think for anybody to get started, I highly recommend checking out any sort of like your heart coherence. It's a perfect, like your heart coherence is a perfect place to start, because it gives you a beautiful instruction to help bring your awareness away from different spaces in your, when you touch your heart, when
Right.
you touch your flesh, you can feel the warmth, and it draws a section of your brain to actually feel that warmth.
Exactly.
So it takes you out of that reticular activating system of just like, holy crap, listen to all this stuff. And then when you start focusing on the breathing pattern with the touch, it starts becoming a very easy to follow instruction manual. So
Hmm.
that's where I would start. For anybody, I would definitely start with a heart coherence style meditation. Yours is awesome. Check that one out. The Heart Math Institute has
Yeah.
simple like 2-minute ones, like a
Right.
simple,
They're
you
great.
know, they're great. Reach out to people who are, if there's people in every area who do heart coherence. I mean, it's probably the easiest one. You don't have to close your eyes even if you
No.
don't want to. And that is like, I think for me, the kickstart. But what I would say to people is don't stop there. Please don't stop
Yeah.
there.
Keep going.
Dive deep. Dive deep, because meditation is a gift. It's literally our ability to go dive into our toolbox. So because of meditation, I have established quite an interesting morning routine, and it's always evolving. It's
Hmm.
always evolving. But most recently, I think what's been working great for me, especially because you asked me earlier, like what's crazy that's happened since our meditation, our group meditation. I've like left my job. I've like, yeah, my brain is on like this. I have this faith in the universe that good things are going to happen. And you know what's crazy,
Sweet.
man? Good things are happening. It's
They're
wild.
happening.
Yeah, this is one of them, man. I'm so grateful to
I'm
be
not
on this
surprised.
podcast.
I think
I'm
that's great.
so
Yeah.
grateful. So yeah, so it's been an evolution, man. And now most recently, one of the things that I think has been the most helpful, and this took a while to be able to learn how to do, because I learned about it a long time ago, but it took a while to learn how to do, was as soon as I feel that moment of waking, that
Mhm.
like, when you can feel yourself waking up and you're out of that sleep, but your eyes stay shut,
Mhm.
I immediately start like either doing the Ho'oponopono, which is I love you,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you.
Yeah.
Right? At least that's how I run it. Um, and I'll run that, or I will literally just pick the feeling of like, oh, dude, I just woke up.
Yeah.
Like that one is my favorite, actually. And I've been doing that one the most lately.
Mm-hmm.
Is I've just been like, oh man, I just woke up, and I'll really send this charge through my body with my eyes closed. Like, and you can feel it. Like for me
Mm-hmm.
personally, I can feel like this, like charge that runs down to my feet, up into my head of like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, you just woke up, man. Like we're good. We got a day. Like we got a day today.
Right.
So that was the way I kick it off. And now what I've been really doing is recently I'll go out and I'll do Wim Hof breathing. I'll go drink a big glass of water.
Right.
Take a big glass of water. I'll take my Biomedic, which is
I take a biome every day, so I think it helps with your
Biomedic.
your
Yeah,
stomach,
it's a I don't know why the word's escaping me at the moment, but Biomedic's this is a particular company that makes this kind.
It's
But I
good
take
with probiotic at the same time.
probiotic.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for. This particular one gets glyphosate out of your system, which
Right.
is what it's like with the whole food thing. So I'm passionate
Right.
about. So I'll take that, drink my water, then I'll sit down and I do the Wim Hof breathing. And I've been incorporating other people's techniques into, like, I'm mixing people's techniques.
Right.
So I've been using a lot of like some of your techniques with eye movements and
Right.
moving
Yes.
the placements of your eyes while I'm doing Wim Hof breathing. And then when I just had Dan on, Dan Van Day, I got to keep saying it. I will throw my head way back while I'm doing the breathing.
Right. I have done that, and super powerful.
Super powerful. So I'll do all that, and then as soon as I finish my breathing, I just recently found this this app, and I have no affiliation with these guys, but I just found them. They're called Synctuition,
Mm-hmm.
and they use 3D sound with their meditations. So like when you listen to a meditation in the headphone, it feels like your brain has been plopped off the top of your head and like is set inside of the sound box where all this is happening. It's the wildest thing.
Right.
It's allowed me to really get like cognitively clear first thing in the morning. So I'll do my breathing right into the meditation. And then after that, I change it up every day. Some days I'll do a workout. I have a 2-year-old daughter too, so
awesome.
She dictates a lot of what happens after about 6:30 or so.
Right, of course.
So if I can make it past 6:30 without her waking up, I'll usually try to get a workout in. Since this has happened, the pandemic, I can't go to a gym, so I just work out at home. And really, it's been wild. Like my routine's changed up everything after my morning since I've left my job, so it's been kind of interesting being wide open.
Well, I'm a collector of the morning ritual because mine is very similar to yours in many ways. And I've been waking up and just, where's God in my body? I've been doing that. And similar to what I feel this electricity suddenly running through. Like the moment I wake up, I do exactly. Thank God I woke up again. It's all good. But then,
boom! I made it.
Where's God? I can feel God in my body right now. So
that's beautiful.
Right.
When you do that, it helps too. And another thing I want to mention too that I do that I forgot to mention is cold showers.
Yes.
I'll usually huge on the cold showers, man. I'm going to be honest with you. If anybody hasn't checked him out, check out Aaron Alexander. He has a whole blog on how to build like your own thing at home. And I want to do that. The plunge.
Yeah, with the freezer and then change. I'm doing that. It looks complicated, but we need a pump, right?
Yeah.
To clean the water out. We need to line up the side so it doesn't leak, and you have to unplug it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on you. I'm on exactly what you're doing.
Because I do the shower,
go to
man.
Home Depot, and maybe I need to get that freezer. Which one? I want to do it right. I don't want to.
Yeah.
But do we freeze
I totally get it.
I'm. It's on my list because.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I've been doing it in my shower. And the shower is great. It really is. The shower's
just a little more.
In the winter time here in New England, man, it's like icicles come out of that shower.
Right.
So during wintertime when I'm doing it, and I'll do in the wintertime, I like to wake up 4:00 in the morning, and I'll do it. I'll do it like right when I wake up. I'll go do some quick Wim Hofs, short one, and I'll go right in at like 4 a.m. in the morning, and that stuff will light you up more than a cup of coffee ever will.
It is. It's better than a cup of coffee.
It is.
Yeah.
But there's a summer rolls on here, man. It just gets the water isn't cold anymore,
right.
and I want it to be good. It's funny how you hated it
right after it's melted from the ice, where it's just liquid enough. That's that's what we're both trying to get. I hear you.
No, and I hated that too. Just for everybody's information, this is not something that like you don't go into cold exposure like woohoo and
No,
love it.
it's hard. There's a part of me that does not want to do it. There's a part of me that says no.
But you love it still, though, right?
Right. Yeah.
And now I need it.
Yeah.
And I want it colder.
Right. Something pretty. It's very mental. My brain is never more clear after a super cold shower or cold plunge. There's something going on electrically and chemically in my brain when I do that. So
you have to be in the moment, man. If you've ever it's like if you've ever touched something really hot or if you've ever been really, really cold, your body zooms to that and that
to the moment. It's a forced
moment.
It's a forced momentary bringing you to the now. So I just want to thank you for taking the time with me. I've had a great time. We could probably talk for hours more. I'll definitely have you on again. Yes, and we'll be doing more meditations with the QHC. So everybody check out the Quantum Health Collective. Check out the Longa Life podcast. And you have a YouTube channel coming soon. You're going to start posting, right?
Yeah, that'll be coming. Yeah, working on getting some of these.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
And so Longa, Longa Life podcast. Check it out it's everywhere you can find podcasts. And thank you and welcome.
Ryan, man.
Welcome to the reality revolution.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome to the reality revolution. I'm just really excited today because this is the first day that my book is released. This is it, the reality revolution. Worked on this for a very long time. So many of the things that I discovered along the way, and I was excited to share it with everybody. Tell you a little bit about it. I'm like everybody else. I'm interacting in the world and starting to realize that my thoughts created reality. As I did this, I started to see some major shifts in my reality. I started to explore the idea of maneuvering through parallel realities. I'm your host, Brian Scott.